Hey guys, tonight we're going to journey back in time to the scorching deserts of the Middle East, where a humble but extraordinary beverage has been nourishing and sustaining civilizations for millennia. Yes, we're talking about camel milk, that unsung hero of the desert, which, while not your average dairy delight, has a history as rich as the sand dunes it comes from. Now, you probably won't survive this deep dive into the surprisingly crucial role camel milk played in ancient empires. But hey, at least you'll sleep better after learning this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I mean, I'm not here to guilt trip you, but it's a nice gesture if you think this little trip into history is worth your time. Also, leave a comment with your location and the time. Let's see how far this little bedtime history tale is traveling tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine you're standing in the heart of the desert. The sun beats down relentlessly, the air is thick with dust, and the land stretches endlessly in every direction. Water is a precious commodity, and finding food is a daily struggle. Yet, amidst all this harshness, a creature known for its resilience has helped shape the survival of countless desert empires. We're talking about the camel, specifically, its milk, a crucial lifeline for those who called the vast desert their home. Camel milk has been a vital part of the diet in desert regions for thousands of years, dating back to the Bedouin tribes who roamed the deserts of the Middle East. In a world where water could be scarce and food hard to come by, camel milk became much more than just a beverage. It was a survival tool. This liquid gold provided nourishment, hydration, and, most importantly, the energy needed to survive in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. The Bedouins knew this all too well. They didn't just drink camel milk, they relied on it for their very existence. The nomadic lifestyle, so deeply tied to the desert, meant that they had to depend on their camels for food, transport, and even shelter. Camels could carry their milk across vast distances, allowing these nomads to remain self-sufficient even in the most remote places. And let's not forget, the milk wasn't just for survival. It was a central part of their social and cultural life. But why was camel milk so essential, you might wonder? Well, camel milk is unlike any other milk you're used to. It's incredibly rich in nutrients, containing proteins, vitamins, and minerals that kept people going even when other sources of nutrition were scarce. The milk is also easier to digest than cow milk, making it perfect for people who lived on the move, constantly on the hunt for food and water in a land where those things were luxuries. Historians still argue whether camel milk was the sole reason these ancient societies managed to thrive, but there's no doubt that without it, life in the desert would have been much, much harder. Now that you're cozy and we've painted the picture of the desert's unforgiving landscape, let's take a deeper look at how camel milk helped shape the daily lives of nomadic tribes. Think of it as the original superfood, well before anyone slapped that trendy label on chia seeds. If you were a nomad traveling through endless sand dunes, a steady supply of camel milk was your secret weapon. But how exactly did it become so integral to their lifestyle? Let's wander through history and find out. For the Bedouins, camel milk wasn't just a source of nutrition. It was the cornerstone of their survival. Picture this. You're out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but sand. Your only companions are your camels, who carry your goods, provide you with milk, and act as your means of transport. The milk they give is consumed fresh, making it one of the few sources of hydration in the desert where water can be both rare and unreliable. The nomads knew that camels were more than just beasts of burden. They were lifesavers in more ways than one. But camel milk wasn't just about keeping hunger at bay. It was also a source of incredible nutritional power. Camel milk is rich in proteins, fatty acids, and vitamins like B and C, making it an ideal fuel for the human body. In fact, in some regions, it was even used as a substitute for water in cooking, making soups and stews that kept the nomads nourished during their long journeys. This ability to thrive off a single source of nutrition for days at a time was what allowed the Bedouins to roam far and wide, setting up camps in places where other cultures might struggle to survive. Historians still debate whether camel milk was the primary reason for the Bedouins' success or just one piece of the puzzle, but the fact remains that it played a major role in helping these nomadic people adapt to one of the harshest environments known to humanity. But let's take a moment to appreciate the quiet genius of this situation. Camels and humans working together like an ancient tag team. The nomads didn't have to rely on multiple animals or supplies. They had one creature that provided both transport and food. It's like having a walking refrigerator with legs. And with that milk, the nomads were able to survive, adapt, and build their communities in the middle of the desert. Even more impressive is how this ancient practice has survived and evolved over the centuries. While today camel milk is often seen as a novelty or luxury in the Western world, it was once a vital resource for these nomadic people. And if you think about it, the camel was doing more than just providing food. It was helping these societies maintain their unique cultural identity. There's something almost poetic about that, how a single creature whose survival depended on the same harsh conditions as its human companions could offer such deep nourishment and life-saving sustenance. Now that we've established how crucial camel milk was for the survival of nomadic tribes, let's take a step back in time to see just how the camel came to be such an indispensable companion. After all, it wasn't always this way. These remarkable creatures didn't simply pop up out of nowhere, offering up their life-sustaining milk to any desert traveler. So, how did the camel become the ultimate desert survival machine? Well, it's time to dive into the fascinating tale of camel domestication. The process of taming camels dates back thousands of years, likely around 3000 to 2000 BCE. Before this, camels roamed freely across the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa, serving as wild animals that didn't serve much of a practical purpose. Sure, they were resilient, able to survive extreme conditions, but they were also, well, wild. It wasn't until the Bedouins began the long process of domestication that these creatures transformed into the essential part of desert life we now associate them with. Historians still debate the exact timeline of camel domestication, with some arguing it was a gradual process that happened over centuries, while others believe it was more of a sudden leap. Regardless, the result was the same. Camels became the perfect partners for the Bedouins. These animals were uniquely suited for life in the desert, able to travel long distances without water, survive extreme temperatures, and carry heavy loads. Essentially, they were the 4x4 trucks of the ancient world. Once the domestication process was complete, camels were no longer just wandering creatures. They became the backbone of desert societies. The Bedouins began breeding camels specifically for their milk and their ability to transport goods and people across the vast, arid landscape. The camel milk that followed became a key part of daily life. Without it, the nomadic way of life wouldn't have been possible. The camels were able to travel vast distances, while their milk kept people nourished and hydrated in areas where food and water were otherwise scarce. But, like any good partnership, it wasn't all smooth sailing. While camels were well suited for the desert environment, taming and training them required patience and persistence. The Bedouins had to learn how to care for these animals, understand their needs, and build strong relationships with them. In fact, the bond between the Bedouin and their camels was almost sacred, with deep respect for these animals that helped them survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Historians still argue whether the success of nomadic societies was solely due to the domestication of the camel or if other factors were at play. However, it's clear that the relationship between these nomads and their camels was central to their survival and the growth of desert empires. Without the camel's milk, transport, and companionship, the Bedouins may never have thrived in the desert's vast emptiness. As we've seen, camel milk was integral to the survival of desert nomads, and it all started with the domestication of the camel. But the role of camel milk in these ancient desert societies wasn't confined to just the practicalities of sustenance. It also held a more mystical and spiritual significance. In fact, Camel milk was so revered that it became an essential part of religious rituals and ceremonies, often seen as a divine offering or even a gift from the gods. Let's dive into the sacred relationship between camel milk and religion in the ancient world. In many desert cultures, camels were considered holy or semi-divine creatures. Their resilience and ability to survive harsh desert conditions made them symbols of endurance, strength, and survival. The milk they produced then wasn't just for physical nourishment, it was believed to carry spiritual power as well. Ancient Bedouins viewed the camel as a creature closely connected to their gods, and camel milk became a sacred offering in their religious practices. One of the most well-known religious associations with camel milk comes from the Islamic tradition. In the early days of Islam, the camel was highly regarded, and its milk was considered a source of nourishment not only for the body but for the soul. The Prophet Muhammad himself is said to have consumed camel milk on multiple occasions, and there are even accounts of him recommending camel milk to his followers as a remedy for various ailments. In fact, some believe that camel milk was seen as a blessing, a gift from Allah, to help sustain the early Muslim community during times of hardship. Historians still debate the precise religious significance of camel milk across various desert cultures. Some argue that it was purely a matter of practical necessity, while others insist that it held a more profound spiritual value. Either way, what's undeniable is that camel milk became part of the cultural and religious fabric of desert societies. It wasn't just consumed for survival, it was revered, treated with respect, and believed to be imbued with a divine essence. In addition to its connection with Islam, camel milk also played a role in pre-Islamic Arabian beliefs. Some tribes considered the camel a sacred animal, a gift from the gods to ensure their survival in the harsh desert environment. The milk was often used in rituals, offered to deities, or consumed during sacred ceremonies to ensure blessings, protection, and good fortune. To drink camel milk was seen as partaking in a sacred tradition that connected the individual to the divine forces of the desert. As we reflect on the profound role camel milk played in these ancient spiritual practices, we can't help but marvel at how something so simple, yet so vital, could hold such deep meaning. The camel was more than just an animal in these desert cultures. It was a symbol of life itself, and its milk was both a literal and spiritual lifeline. So far, we've explored how camel milk was central to the survival of desert societies and how it held spiritual and cultural significance. But there's another layer to this story: camel milk as a commodity. Yes, it wasn't just for local consumption. It became an item of trade, a prized possession that found its way along ancient trade routes. And not just any trade routes, but the legendary Silk Road, that sprawling network of paths that linked east to west, allowing goods, ideas, and cultures to flow between continents. Camel milk, surprisingly, played its part in this grand exchange. The Silk Road is often associated with goods like silk, spices, and precious stones, but less often do we think of milk as one of the key commodities traded. However, in ancient times, camel milk was highly valued across the Middle East and beyond. It wasn't just a survival drink, it was a symbol of prosperity, a marker of wealth, and a sign of access to the vast, remote regions of the desert. As such, it became a desirable product for traders and travelers alike. The trade of camel milk began when the Bedouins realized that their camels produced more than enough milk for their needs, and they began to trade it with other nomadic tribes, cities, and even empires. The milk was transported over long distances, typically in leather pouches, which preserved its freshness and allowed it to be traded while still relatively potable. And just as with other valuable goods along the Silk Road, camel milk often had symbolic weight attached to it, offered as tribute to kings, exchanged as gifts between distant empires, or sold as a luxury good. Historians still argue how widely camel milk was traded, given that its preservation and transport could be tricky, especially without the refrigeration systems we enjoy today. Some believe it was a rare commodity along certain segments of the Silk Road, while others think that camel milk traveled widely, following the trade routes into regions like India, China, and even parts of Europe. What's clear, however, is that camel milk held value far beyond its immediate utility in the desert. Think about it for a moment. In a world that had access to few dairy products, camel milk stood out as an exotic and luxurious option. Its ability to withstand the desert's harsh conditions, along with its many health benefits, made it a prized commodity in marketplaces far from its origins. Whether as a drink, medicine, or simply a status symbol, camel milk was worth its weight in gold along these ancient trade routes. As we think about the impact camel milk had on ancient trade, it's fascinating to realize that something so humble, this nutritious, life-giving liquid, became a thread woven through the fabric of one of the most important trade networks in history. The camel, which had once been seen as just a beast of burden, was now the center of a thriving trade that spanned continents, connecting cultures and civilizations. We've explored the essential role camel milk played in the survival of desert societies and how it became a prized trade commodity. But camel milk wasn't just important for trade or sustenance. It was also crucial in times of conflict, specifically in the context of ancient desert battles and sieges. Imagine this. You're leading a siege against a well-fortified city in the middle of a vast, dry desert. Water is low, food supplies are running thin, and the enemy is holding strong. What could possibly keep your troops going under such harsh conditions? Camel milk. Yes, that humble beverage once again came to the rescue, proving itself to be more than just a survival tool in everyday life. Camel milk, with its high nutritional value, played a critical role in sustaining troops during long desert sieges. When access to food and fresh water became a scarce resource, camel milk provided an easily accessible, long-lasting alternative that could keep soldiers healthy and energized. Its ability to hydrate, nourish, and replenish essential nutrients made it an invaluable asset for military campaigns in desert regions. Take, for instance, the military campaigns of the Arab empires in the 7th and 8th centuries, which spanned large parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and even parts of Europe. These empires faced hostile territories, with vast stretches of desert standing between them and their enemies. During sieges, supplies of water were often disrupted or cut off completely, making camel milk a critical alternative for maintaining the strength of soldiers. It wasn't just the ability to stay hydrated that made camel milk invaluable, it was also the nutrients that helped prevent malnutrition, which could decimate an army in a matter of days. Historians still debate the role of camel milk in military strategy, with some suggesting that its influence was exaggerated by folklore. Others believe that it was integral to the success of desert-based military campaigns, as soldiers on the move could rely on the constant supply of milk carried by their camels to stay functional in the harsh environment. Camel milk could be stored in skin pouches, allowing for easy transportation and access during long treks, even when water sources were nowhere to be found. In fact, there are ancient accounts of armies who could survive longer and travel farther than their adversaries, partly thanks to the superior hydration and nutrition that camel milk provided. While water is essential, camel milk provided something more, a sustaining force that kept soldiers physically capable of engaging in combat, no matter how grueling the conditions became. It's almost poetic, isn't it? In these intense moments of warfare and survival, camel milk proved to be a quiet but potent ally. It wasn't the glory of the battlefield that made the difference. It was the humble, life-giving liquid carried across miles of scorching desert by the very creatures that had made the desert their home. Now that we've seen how camel milk played a critical role in ancient sieges and military campaigns, it's time to shift our focus to something a little less dramatic, but no less fascinating: the health benefits of camel milk. Long before the modern world rediscovered it as a superfood, ancient desert cultures were already aware of the remarkable nutritional properties of camel milk. It was more than just a drink, it was a vital part of the diet that kept people healthy and resilient in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Camel milk is rich in proteins, vitamins, and minerals, far more so than cow's milk, and it has a unique composition that makes it easier to digest. This is especially important for people who lived in the desert, where resources like fresh water and food were scarce. The proteins found in camel milk are known to have anti-inflammatory properties, making it beneficial for both preventing and treating common ailments. It's even been suggested that camel milk can help with conditions like diabetes, allergies, and even some forms of autism. While modern science is still exploring these claims, it's clear that the milk of the camel was more than just a survival tool, it was a health elixir. In ancient times, people recognized the value of camel milk as a health tonic, even before the modern world caught on. It was often consumed as a daily beverage, with nomadic tribes ensuring they had a constant supply to maintain their health. But camel milk wasn't just for drinking, it was also used in traditional remedies. In many cultures, it was believed to help with digestive problems, and some even used it in topical treatments for skin conditions. Historians still argue about the exact medicinal properties of camel milk. Some believe it was a placebo effect, while others think it had real, tangible health benefits. Whatever the case, it's clear that camel milk was more than just a meal. It was an essential part of desert life, one that helped keep people in good health and ready to face the challenges of the harsh environment. What's truly remarkable is how this ancient knowledge has persisted to this day. While many of us only recently began hearing about the health benefits of camel milk, ancient peoples had already been using it for centuries, passed down through generations as part of their cultural heritage. This long-standing reliance on camel milk speaks to its importance in sustaining desert societies, not just as food but as a vital health resource. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? In a world where modern diets are constantly changing, where new superfoods appear and disappear with every trend, perhaps we should look back at some of these ancient remedies. After all, the deserts of the Middle East have been surviving with camel milk for thousands of years. It must be doing something right. We've seen how camel milk was essential for survival, warfare, and health, but it wasn't just a staple in daily life. It also played a key role in the ancient world's medical practices. In fact, camel milk was considered a powerful healing agent, with many ancient societies using it to treat a variety of ailments. The belief in its medicinal properties was so strong that it wasn't just consumed as a drink. It was also used in topical applications and even in potions for healing. So, how did camel milk find its way into the realm of ancient medicine? Throughout history, camel milk has been used to treat everything from digestive issues to skin conditions, with some ancient texts even suggesting its use in healing wounds. It's rich in antibacterial and antiviral properties, which made it an essential remedy in areas where infections could easily take root. In the arid, often unsanitary conditions of the desert, camel milk's natural healing qualities were invaluable for preventing and treating illness. One of the more fascinating aspects of camel milk's medicinal history is its use in traditional remedies for digestive issues. The Bedouins, who had an intimate understanding of the desert and its challenges, used camel milk to help treat stomach ulcers and other digestive ailments. They recognized that camel milk's high concentration of lactoferrin, an antimicrobial protein, could help prevent infections and promote healing. In fact, some modern research has shown that camel milk may have anti-inflammatory properties that could be helpful in treating conditions like Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome. Historians still debate the full extent of camel milk's medicinal properties. While some ancient remedies are undoubtedly based on myth or tradition, others were grounded in practical, observable results. In any case, it's clear that camel milk was far more than just a nutritional supplement. It was a key element of the healing practices that helped desert peoples survive in an environment where access to modern medicine was a luxury they could hardly afford. As you might expect, camel milk's medicinal uses weren't limited to internal treatments. Its benefits extended to the skin as well. In many cultures, camel milk was used in skincare routines to treat burns, rashes, and even more severe conditions like eczema and psoriasis. Its rich mix of vitamins and minerals was believed to promote healing and rejuvenation. This use of camel milk in skincare has persisted to this day, with modern cosmetic companies increasingly turning to camel milk for its nourishing and healing properties. It's incredible, isn't it? Camel milk was serving as a daily nutritional necessity and a medical powerhouse long before science caught up with its myriad benefits. And what's even more fascinating is that many of these ancient uses for camel milk are now being rediscovered in the modern world, as researchers continue to explore its therapeutic potential. Now that we've explored the medicinal and health benefits of camel milk, let's shift gears a bit and take a look at how camel milk contributed to the growth of some of the great empires that once ruled the desert. It's easy to imagine camels as the rugged, reliable beasts that carried warriors and traders through vast stretches of sand. But these camels, along with the milk they provided, were instrumental in the rise of powerful empires in the Middle East, helping to expand and sustain them in ways you might not expect. The Arabian Peninsula, home to some of the most influential empires in history, relied heavily on camels to maintain their dominance over the desert regions. The ability to cross the desert with relatively little water, thanks to their sturdy camels and their life-giving milk, gave these empires a distinct advantage. With the camels' help, they were able to maintain long-lasting trade routes, move armies efficiently, and conquer vast expanses of land. Take the early Islamic caliphates for example. These empires, which spanned from the Middle East into North Africa and parts of Europe, were built on the backbone of camel travel. The camel's milk was vital not only for sustaining the soldiers but also for maintaining the health of the citizens and traders who relied on it to keep functioning in a land with so few resources. The camels carried the trade goods, while their milk helped sustain the populations that built the great cities of the empire, like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo. Historians still argue about the exact role of camel milk in the military strategies of these empires, but it's clear that the use of camels and their milk was a significant factor in the success of these vast desert empires. The ability to sustain armies and keep trade flowing across such harsh terrain would have been impossible without this invaluable resource. The camel milk trade itself also played a role in the economic prosperity of these empires. Just as camel milk moved along ancient trade routes, so did other commodities including textiles, spices, and precious metals. Camel milk became one of the valuable products traded between empires, passed along the Silk Road and the Arabian trade routes, connecting disparate civilizations and fostering a rich exchange of goods and ideas. This trade helped boost the economy and allowed these desert empires to expand their wealth, power, and influence. In a way, it's remarkable how such a simple product, something that might seem so ordinary, could contribute to the rise of mighty empires. Yet, camel milk wasn't just a nutritional necessity, it was a key part of the infrastructure that kept these empires thriving. Whether it was keeping soldiers fed and hydrated, maintaining long-distance trade, or supporting the citizens who lived under the protection of these empires, camel milk was essential to the growth of desert empires. It's almost as if the camels, with their milk, were the unsung heroes of ancient desert history. And in a way they still are, acting as the quiet but vital link between ancient civilizations and the empire-building feats they accomplished. As we've seen, camel milk played an instrumental role in the survival, health, and expansion of ancient desert empires. But its significance didn't stop there. Camel milk also found its way into the realm of myth and legend, where it took on an almost supernatural status. In the stories told around campfires and in the halls of palaces, camel milk wasn't just a drink, it was a symbol of resilience, endurance, and divine favor. So, how did camel milk become entwined with the myths and legends of ancient cultures? In many ancient societies, including those in the Arabian Peninsula, camels were viewed as mystical creatures with powers beyond mere survival. Their ability to endure the desert's brutal conditions, travel long distances without water, and carry enormous loads gave them an almost otherworldly reputation. As a result, their milk was considered not just a vital resource, but a gift from the gods. The connection between camel milk and the divine was especially strong in Bedouin culture, where camels were often seen as sacred creatures. One fascinating example comes from pre-Islamic Arabian mythology, where camels were often portrayed as creatures sent by the gods to help the people of the desert survive. In some versions of the myth, camel milk was said to have been given to humans directly by the deities, ensuring that the desert tribes could thrive in one of the harshest climates on Earth. In these stories, camel milk wasn't just a physical sustenance. It was also a symbol of divine favor, a gift that connected people to the celestial forces that governed their world. Historians still debate how much of these myths were based on actual religious practices, but it's clear that the symbolic importance of camel milk was deeply rooted in desert cultures. In ancient poetry, for example, camel milk was often used as a metaphor for purity, health, and the bounty of the desert. It represented the life-giving force of nature, the ultimate sustenance that came from the earth itself. This symbolism of camel milk as a divine gift continued even into the early Islamic period, where it was still viewed as a blessing from Allah. Camel milk also appeared in the sacred texts of various cultures. In early Islamic writings, for example, camel milk is mentioned as a miraculous remedy for ailments. The Prophet Muhammad himself is said to have endorsed camel milk for its healing properties, and his followers were encouraged to use it for medicinal purposes. This connection between camel milk and healing further elevated its status, turning it into something that was not only essential for survival but also revered as a magical elixir capable of curing the sick and restoring health. The way camel milk was woven into these cultural myths and religious stories speaks to its importance in the lives of desert peoples. It wasn't just a resource. It was a symbol of the relationship between humans and the harsh desert environment, one that sustained them physically and spiritually. Camel milk, like the camel itself, became a mythic figure in its own right, representing both survival and the divine favor that allowed desert societies to thrive. As we look back on these stories, we can't help but marvel at how something as simple as a drink could take on such profound meaning in the context of ancient cultures. Camel milk, in all its humble glory, was more than just a beverage. It was a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a lifeline that carried with it the very essence of the desert's resilience. Camel milk's journey through ancient societies was far from a quiet one. As we've seen, it played vital roles in survival, health, and mythology. But one of its most fascinating impacts was on the trade routes that connected distant cultures and empires. Camel milk, as an essential desert commodity, found its way not only into local markets but along some of the world's most renowned trade routes. From the bustling cities of the Arabian Peninsula to the distant corners of the Mediterranean and beyond, camel milk helped to stitch together the fabric of global exchange. One of the most important trade routes in history was the Silk Road, the vast network that connected Asia to Europe, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. Camel milk was a key part of this exchange as it traveled along with goods such as silk, spices, and precious metals. While the Silk Road is often remembered for its luxurious commodities, the inclusion of camel milk in this trade network tells us something about the everyday needs of ancient traders and travelers. Historians still debate how far camel milk actually traveled along these routes. Some suggest that it was a niche product, traded only in regions close to the desert where camels were prevalent. Others believe that camel milk, along with other desert products like dates and spices, made its way through the various outposts and hubs of the Silk Road, eventually reaching more distant markets in Central Asia, India, and even parts of Europe. Regardless of the specifics, one thing is clear: camel milk wasn't just an isolated product of the desert. It became part of a global exchange system that spanned continents and connected civilizations. The real key to camel milk's movement along these trade routes lay in its preservation and transport. Unlike many other perishables, camel milk had the advantage of being carried by camels themselves. These hardy animals were able to travel vast distances with little water and could carry milk in specially designed leather pouches, which kept it fresh for longer periods. This ability to transport milk over long distances made it an attractive option for traders who were navigating the harsh deserts of the Middle East and North Africa. Traders didn't just rely on camels to carry their goods. They also relied on the camel's milk to keep them fueled and hydrated during long, grueling journeys. It's easy to imagine how valuable camel milk must have been in these circumstances. Not only did it serve as a nutritious drink for the traders themselves, but it could also be sold to the local populations in desert cities and towns along the way. In a sense, camel milk acted as both a personal resource for the traveler and a valuable commodity that could be traded for goods and services. Beyond just its nutritional value, camel milk also had a certain prestige attached to it. Much like the other exotic goods exchanged along the Silk Road, camel milk became a symbol of access to the wealth and culture of the desert regions. The more exotic the product, the more coveted it became. Traders who could offer camel milk as part of their wares were able to capitalize on its rarity and its connection to the distant deserts from which it came. What's fascinating about camel milk's role in these trade routes is how it was both an essential resource and a luxury product. It was practical for desert dwellers, essential for survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Yet, when transported along the Silk Road, it took on a different dimension. It became part of a cultural exchange, a product that linked diverse civilizations across continents, transcending its humble origins to become a symbol of prosperity, connection, and the exchange of knowledge. As we've explored, camel milk wasn't just a crucial resource for desert dwellers, it was also a sought-after commodity that made its way along the Silk Road and other ancient trade routes. But the story of camel milk doesn't stop with ancient trade. It also presents a fascinating comparison with another widely consumed milk, cow milk. While camel milk has its roots firmly planted in the desert, cow milk, the go-to dairy in many parts of the world today, had its own place in history. So, how do the two compare, especially when it comes to life in the desert? When you think of milk, you probably picture the familiar cow milk, available at every supermarket in countless varieties. But for those living in desert regions, camel milk was a far superior option, especially when it came to survival in arid climates. While cow milk can spoil quickly in the heat and requires a much more consistent water supply for the cows, camels are built for the desert. They're able to go for days without water and can survive extreme temperatures. This makes camel milk far more suitable for the desert lifestyle. Not only that, but camel milk has a unique composition that makes it easier to digest for many people. The nutritional value of camel milk also surpasses that of cow milk. Camel milk is richer in certain vitamins and minerals, including iron, magnesium, and B vitamins, which are essential for desert survival. Its lower fat content, combined with its higher levels of unsaturated fatty acids, makes camel milk easier to digest and a more beneficial source of hydration and nutrition in the desert. Camel milk is also lower in lactose, which makes it easier for people who are lactose intolerant to consume it. In a world where lactose intolerance is a common issue, camel milk provides an important alternative to cow's milk. Historians still argue whether camel milk was universally superior to cow milk in desert societies. While camel milk might have been the best option in the harsh, arid climates, it's important to recognize that cow milk was more widely available and easier to produce in more temperate regions. Camels, after all, are not the most abundant livestock in the world. They were primarily confined to the deserts of the Middle East and North Africa, whereas cows were domesticated in a variety of environments. In places where water was more abundant and the climate milder, cow milk was often preferred simply because it was more readily available. Yet, in the desert, camel milk was a lifeline, whereas cow milk, though more common in other parts of the world, didn't have the same advantages. The survivalist qualities of camel milk, along with its rich nutritional benefits, made it not just a practical drink, but a vital component of desert life. This unique combination of endurance and nourishment is what set camel milk apart from cow milk in desert civilizations. But camel milk's superiority wasn't just in its nutritional composition. it was also in its practical applications in desert life. The way camel milk could be stored and transported over vast distances made it an ideal food source for nomadic cultures. Cow milk, by contrast, was more perishable and would spoil much faster in the desert heat. The nomads could carry camel milk with them for days without worry, something that simply wasn't possible with cow milk. When we think about the comparison between camel and cow milk, it's clear that while both have their places in different cultures, camel milk was undoubtedly the superior choice for those who called the desert home. It wasn't just an alternative, it was a necessity, and its adaptability to the harsh desert environment is part of what made it so invaluable throughout history. Now that we've compared camel milk to cow milk and seen how uniquely suited it is to desert life, it's time to explore how camel milk's influence didn't stop with the ancient world. In fact, today camel milk is experiencing a resurgence, not only for its historical significance but also for its impressive health benefits and market demand. The modern world, with its obsession for superfoods and alternative nutrition, has rediscovered camel milk, and it's now considered a trendy yet ancient remedy. But how did something so integral to ancient desert cultures manage to make its way back into the global spotlight? In recent years, camel milk has seen a rise in popularity across the globe, particularly as people become more health-conscious and open to alternative food sources. Camel milk's nutritional profile has made it a prime candidate for people seeking healthier dairy alternatives. It is often marketed as a superfood, thanks to its rich blend of vitamins, minerals, and protein, and it's touted for its ability to help with conditions like lactose intolerance, diabetes, and even autism. While the scientific evidence is still evolving, early research into camel milk's therapeutic benefits has caught the attention of health enthusiasts worldwide. Camel milk's resurgence can also be attributed to its status as an allergen-free alternative for people with sensitivities to cow milk. Many people who suffer from dairy allergies find that they can tolerate camel milk with fewer negative side effects. This has opened up new markets for camel milk in places like Europe, the United States, and parts of Asia. In some areas, camel milk is sold fresh, while in others, it is processed into a variety of products, including cheese, yogurt, and even ice cream. The appeal of camel milk as a healthy, non-allergenic alternative to cow milk has helped propel its popularity in modern times. Beyond its health benefits, camel milk is also seeing increased demand from a culinary perspective. Its distinct, slightly salty taste and creamy texture have made it an interesting ingredient for chefs looking to explore new flavors and textures in their dishes. Some restaurants are now offering camel milk-based recipes, from creamy milkshakes to rich cheeses, bringing a taste of the desert into the modern kitchen. This crossover into gourmet food markets is part of the broader trend of interest in exotic, ancient ingredients that have a unique history and cultural significance. The rise of camel milk in the modern world is a fascinating example of how ancient practices can endure through the ages and even thrive in the contemporary food scene. What was once a simple survival tool for desert dwellers has now become a global commodity, celebrated not only for its rich nutritional content but also for its cultural legacy. It's almost poetic, isn't it? How this humble drink, which helped sustain nomadic tribes and mighty empires, has found its way back into the modern world, where it is now revered as a health elixir and culinary delight. Historians still debate whether camel milk's newfound popularity is a true revival of ancient practices or just a passing trend. Regardless, one thing is clear: camel milk has made a remarkable return to the global stage, continuing to bridge the gap between the past and present, between ancient desert empires and the modern world. As we've seen, camel milk has made an impressive comeback in the modern world, both as a health food and a culinary novelty. But the journey of camel milk is not just about its physical properties or nutritional value. It's about the lasting impact it has had on the cultures that relied on it. Camel milk helped shape not only the daily lives of ancient desert societies but also the broader cultural, economic, and social systems that arose in those regions. And despite its modern resurgence, camel milk remains intricately tied to the desert way of life, to the nomads and empires that once depended on it for survival. When we look at the influence of camel milk on desert civilizations, it's impossible to ignore the role it played in shaping the identity of these cultures. The Bedouins in particular saw the camel as more than just an animal. It was a symbol of resilience, strength, and survival. The relationship between the camel and its people went beyond the physical. It was a deep, spiritual connection that was woven into the fabric of daily life. Camel milk, as the product of this enduring relationship, was viewed not only as sustenance but as a gift from the desert itself. This connection between camel milk and cultural identity can still be seen today in many parts of the world. In some desert communities, camel milk remains a cornerstone of daily life, passed down through generations as a part of their cultural heritage. In these regions, the camel and its milk are more than just practical necessities. They are symbols of survival, of an ancient way of life that has withstood the test of time. However, the spread of camel milk beyond its traditional boundaries has also led to cultural exchanges that have enriched societies across the globe. Just as camel milk once traveled along the trade routes of the ancient world, it now crosses borders and brings people from different cultures together. Modern-day camel milk producers often work with international markets, creating a bridge between desert traditions and contemporary health-conscious consumers. This global exchange not only increases the accessibility of camel milk, but also serves to preserve and celebrate the traditions of the desert peoples who have relied on it for centuries. As we consider the broader cultural impact of camel milk, it's also interesting to note how it has been used as a metaphor in literature and art. Its symbolism in desert cultures has carried over into various forms of storytelling, where camel milk is often depicted as a life-giving force, an embodiment of endurance and hope in the face of adversity. This metaphorical use of camel milk highlights its deep connection to the desert and the people who live there, reinforcing its role as a symbol of resilience and perseverance. Historians still argue whether the prominence of camel milk in ancient cultures was a result of its practical value alone or if it was also an expression of deeper cultural and spiritual beliefs. One thing is certain though, camel milk has always been more than just a commodity. It has been a vital thread in the fabric of desert life, shaping not just the survival of individuals but the identity and legacy of entire civilizations. As we reflect on the journey of camel milk from its humble beginnings in the desert to its current place in the global marketplace, we can't help but appreciate the lasting impact this simple beverage has had on the world. Whether it's being consumed for health benefits, used in ancient rituals or sold in modern-day markets, camel milk continues to bridge the gap between past and present, between ancient desert societies and the modern world. As we've traveled through time, exploring the remarkable role of camel milk in ancient societies and its surprising comeback in the modern world, it's clear that this humble liquid has had a profound impact on the cultures, economies, and even the spiritual lives of desert peoples. From sustaining nomads on long desert treks to helping shape empires and trade routes, camel milk has always been more than just a drink. It's a lifeline, a symbol of endurance, and a bridge between past and present. But as we come to the end of our journey, it's important to pause and reflect on how camel milk's legacy continues to shape the world we live in today. While the desert cultures that relied on camel milk have evolved over time, the resilience they demonstrated in adapting to their environment is something we can still learn from. The story of camel milk is, in many ways, the story of human survival, how societies have managed to endure and thrive in the face of harsh conditions, and how they have used the resources at their disposal to craft a way of life that endures for generations. The revival of interest in camel milk is part of a larger trend of rediscovering ancient, sustainable food sources. In an age where modern diets often focus on convenience and mass-produced goods, there's a growing desire to return to more natural, time-tested sources of nutrition. Camel milk fits this desire perfectly, offering a healthier, more sustainable alternative to the dairy products we've come to take for granted. As more people discover its health benefits and unique properties, camel milk is once again carving out its place in the modern world, just as it did centuries ago. Yet, despite its modern resurgence, camel milk still carries with it the spirit of the ancient desert. It's a reminder of the cultures that once thrived in some of the harshest environments on Earth, a symbol of their ingenuity, resourcefulness, and deep connection to the land they called home. Camel milk continues to connect us to the past, reminding us that even the most simple of resources can have an enormous impact on the world. As you reflect on the journey of camel milk, consider how it has evolved over the centuries, from a life-sustaining drink in the desert to a symbol of health and prosperity in the modern world. It's a testament to the enduring strength of ancient traditions, and to the remarkable resilience of both the people who relied on camel milk and the camels themselves. Now, as we wind down, imagine the endless deserts of the Middle East once more, where camels continue to roam, their milk sustaining the generations that follow in the footsteps of their ancestors. Let this thought linger with you as you drift off into peaceful rest, knowing that the legacy of camel milk continues to flow through history, bringing with it the same strength, endurance, and resilience that has carried desert societies through centuries.